All right, thank you everyone for being here today. Before we begin, I'd like to thank our sponsors and members of City Club for your support. I'd also like to thank MCAT for recording our monthly forums. Replays of the forums are available at the MCAT website, which is mcat.org. And of course, I'd like to thank our guests, Janna Lundquist and Geoff Badenoch, for being here today, representing the Missoula Public Library. And then we also have some special guests here today. Zach Goodwin and the International Studies Group are here. We have students traveling that are here in Missoula from Russia, Brazil, India, China, and Japan. So thank you all for being here. Both Janna and Geoff will have until about 12:25 to present their update on the Missoula Public Library. Once they've done that, we will break 10 minutes for table talk. This allows participants at each table to introduce themselves to one another and discuss today's program. We'd like to ask each table to come up with one question for Janna and or Geoff.
We've got questions for them.
All right, perfect. And each question, we ask that you be brief and on topic. We'd like to be able to get a question from every table. And if time allows, we will certainly take individual questions after that. And members of the press are reminded to hold off on asking their questions until the forum has convened. Our guests have agreed to stay after 1 o'clock to answer any questions that you might have. And after each table has asked a question, as I said, if we have extra time, we'll take individual questions. At this time, I'd like to ask City Club Missoula board member Susan Hay-Patrick to come up, and she will introduce today's program.
It's great to see so many people here to hear about this wonderful new happening in our town, where we're going to hear about a 21st century facility, not just shushing librarians and the Dewey Decimal System. So it's kind of exciting. We have two wonderful speakers representing the campaign for the new library. Janna Lundquist is a Minneapolis-born business and nonprofit consultant who believes that clarity yields results. I should try that sometime. Through her business, Janna Lundquist Consulting, she helps leadership teams communicate, make decisions, and take action to drive long-term success. Janna is my immediate past boss, the immediate past president of the Board of Directors of United Way of Missoula County. And as you'll hear today, she is a member of the All Under One Roof capital campaign for the new Missoula Public Library. Geoff Badenoch, our second speaker, was born in Glendive and raised in Bozeman, but Missoula is really where he made his mark. He joined the Missoula Redevelopment Agency in 1982, became its executive director in 1985, and served in that capacity till 2004. He's currently a special projects consultant and a community volunteer. Geoff is also one of Missoula's most active volunteers, with way too many volunteer activities, past and present, to list here. But he currently serves on the supervisory committee of Missoula Federal Credit Union, on the boards of the Missoula Downtown Partnership and Missoula Downtown Foundation, and on the board of the Foundation for Missoula Public Library. One other example of Geoff's civic engagement, and he's a past City Club Missoula board member. He was elected to the City of Missoula's Local Government Study Commission and co-authored the Missoula City Charter, which was adopted by Missoula voters in 1996. So please welcome Janna and Geoff, and I think Janna is first.
Hello, everybody. So nice to see your faces today. I want to get a little sense of your all's experience with Missoula Public Library before we get started. Who here has visited the library or otherwise accessed a resource in the past week? Anyone? Raise a hand. Okay. What about in the past 6 months? Who's been to the library? Okay, that's a pretty good number. How about you were at the library in 2017? Okay, that's a pretty good share of the room. You haven't been to the library since you were there with children who are now grown up. Usually I get a couple of those hands as well. Who here has never been to the Missoula Public Library? I bet we have quite a few given all of our visiting scholars today. Well, I won't hold that against you. You have some more time to make it to the library before you depart. Well, wonderful. I'm a volunteer capital campaign member of the Missoula Public Library, and I'm so delighted to be here along with Geoff to tell you about the project that we have in the works. Before we jump to the present and the future, I want to give you just a little background as to how we got to where we are today. The library that currently resides on Main Street downtown was built in the early 70s. And the early 70s was a much different time and place than it is now. It was before things like CDs, DVDs, laptops and smartphones were way out of the picture at that point in time. While the library itself was a huge improvement, a big upgrade over what had been there previously, a lot has changed since then. Our library leaders have done amazing work in the meantime to remodel and adapt the space so that it can be used for more programs, to serve more patrons, to offer more to our Missoula County residents, and really eke out every bit of the square footage and the space that we have there. However, the facts are that the physical guts of the current Missoula Public Library no longer can keep up with the demand and the usage that it receives in our community. One of the most interesting facts that I've learned in the process of being involved is the boiler system, for example. Every time a part breaks on the boiler, a new piece has to be hand manufactured to replace it, okay? You're not stopping on Amazon for that piece. You're not heading up to Home Depot. There's a craft person that needs to get involved to make that work. So there's some clumsiness around those things that we've really suffered in the years since. And if you even think about how energy efficiency has expanded, exploded, construction today is totally different than it was in the early 1970s. Size of the library has also proven to be a problem. The Missoula population has doubled from about 60,000 to nearly 120,000 people in that time. Our librarians select a book to discard every time they bring a new one into the collection. And all of the events that go on there, which many of you in the room have likely been there for, whether that's classes or readings or community events, community group meetings, they have far exceeded the availability of the free meeting rooms that are available there. Technology has changed in the meantime as well when you think about resources. But they may not have changed as much as you think. Books remain a very integral part of what the library offers. We think that will continue into the future, but they're certainly supplemented with a lot of different electronic and digital resources, including some physical resources that Geoff mentioned. Can I turn it over to you?
In spite of the building being a repository for books, there's so much more that goes on in our library, and it's such an important part of the community. One of the things that, with our county population of 120,000, we have lots of different things that are going on in our library. We have 7 branches of the library. Most people just think that our library is down on Main Street. We have cooperative agreements with schools that allow us to have branches of our library all through Missoula County. We have 57,488 library card holders in our county. And those people, we have an average of over 1,000 people a day go through the doors of the library. They checked out 870,000 items last year. We have 231,000 print items. We've got 19,000 ebooks and almost 13,000 audiobooks and 16,000 videos. You can get movies, how-to videos, and all of that is free. We also have programs at our library that include genealogy research. You can get a passport through the library. We have a notary public, something that Eventually, everybody needs to have a notary public stamp something for us. And one of the things that I thought was very interesting, we have a maker space that has 3D printer in it. And this is the cutting edge technology. This is what's going on today, and it's available at our library. And I brought a couple of items that were manufactured at our maker space in the library. The first, this one was designed and manufactured by a woman who wanted something to grow succulents in. And so she designed it and had our 3D printer build it. This item, I understand a gentleman was working on a fencing project, a fence in his yard, and a part was missing or broken. And rather than having to abandon his project, he came down to the library and made this piece and was able to complete his project. That's your library work. In response to the question of our old, inefficient, small library, the trustees and the foundation of the library did research, and we asked ourselves first the question, can we further remodel or expand the current library? The library's undergone a couple, 2 or 3 major remodels since it was first built in the 70s. And the answer to our question was, no, it can't be further remodeled. We often get asked the question, could you add another story to the existing library? The answer is no. The structural components that make up the library would not allow us to add another floor onto the library. We also asked ourselves the question, can we reuse an existing building? We looked very hard. Could we move the library to the Missoula Merc when the Merc was undergoing its consideration and its future in Missoula? Could we have the library there? We looked long and hard. We had it examined by architects and engineers, and the answer that we came back was no. Come on, work. If no, and the answer was no, what sort of library is needed in 2020 for a community our size? Well, this is what a modern library is. It's a community institution that promotes the well-being of citizens of all ages by being an inviting and accommodating space where true knowledge is valued, curiosity is met with information, imagination is stimulated, and learning occurs. That's what we set out for ourselves. This is what we need to have for Missoula. When we looked at the national standards, we learned that there were some specific things we needed to address. Our library for our community needs to be about 3 times the size of our current library. We need to more efficiently process, check out, and return and materials handling. With 870,000 items going through out the door every year, that stuff, in order to be able to be put back once it's returned by users, you have to handle it efficiently. We have to get it back on the shelf, we have to get it back in circulation. We have to have more parking. That was something that people told us when we asked them, what do we need in parking? Frequently came up as one of the items. We had a challenge. We want to be able to operate our new library with more or less the same staff. This wasn't a plan to increase workers at the library. We wanted to be able to work with pretty much the same staff. And that is something that we're going to be able to accomplish because of our attention to design. We had to also allow ourselves to benefit the community today and in the future in a new and flexible ways, and to successfully meet the demands of the modern library. How do we do that? In true Missoula fashion, by forming partnerships. And now I'm going to turn this back over to Janna to tell you how we're going to do that.
Thank you, Geoff. Well, I'm particularly excited about these partnerships that we created. In fact, when I was sitting down with some capital campaign members about 2.5 years ago, and they said, Janna, do you want to get involved in this campaign? Of course, I've always been a library supporter and served on the foundation in years prior, but it was really these partnerships that set this project apart for me as something that I was willing to dedicate a lot of time and effort to. I have 2 preschoolers at home, and so I am intimately aware of all of the learning opportunities that are out there for our young people in our community, and also how it can get kind of expensive. So I was really delighted to hear about these opportunities being available to our young people free of admission charge. So we formed partnerships with these 3 nonprofits, Families First Children's Museum, Spectrum, and MCAT. The first 2, of course, are more focused on the young people specifically. But I am excited about these because we will have shared spaces for children to learn and grow in all of these different areas of their lives. The library already serves literacy in a really strong way, and that will only increase given our additional square footage and offerings moving forward. But with the Children's Museum, we'll add a lot of experiential learning, and then Spectrum really works to maximize STEM learning, which we're hearing, and I'm sure we can learn from a lot of our student colleagues in the room, is absolutely essential for our children to be able to compete in the worldwide marketplace moving forward. So if you can imagine shared exhibits and displays that all have to do with concepts, whether that's gravity or space travel or anything you can think of, all of these different offerings will speak to the STEM and the literacy and the experiential learning, which is really fantastic. On top of that, we have MCAT, which serves our community as it is, providing us with footage of days like today, but in addition, we'll be able to provide really training and programs that support video production, editing, other aspects like that, movie making, to people throughout our community as well. So, in my work and in my volunteerism in my community, I'm always really conscious of, well, that's a really cool new idea, but is anyone else already doing that? Are we reinventing the wheel? And I think this partnership situation that we've developed with All Under One Roof is really fantastic because we're making absolutely positive we're not reinventing any wheel, and we're being as effective and efficient with our space and with our other resources as absolutely possible. Speaking, to my own kids and thinking about the peers and the classmates that they'll be starting school with before too long, I want to make sure that, a $5 a person admission charge isn't preventing kids from getting exposure to really, really cool exhibits as often as they can possibly get there. And the way that this partnership is structured will make sure that exposure and learning is possible at every turn. I'm just going to make a quick note here. I think that's most of what I want to say about that. Am I missing anything on the partnership front, Geoff?
Just the fact that having a library next to these facilities is really key, because if you can imagine a kid going to a science exhibit and learning about something and still being curious, having a library right there, they can continue their inquiries of what they're interested in. And with MCAT, they may be stimulated by reading something in the library. They want to tell a story. They want to tell a story with video, and having the video production capability and being able to learn how to make a video about what they're interested in is right there, all under one roof. Okay. So we figured out how big it has to be, we figured out the flexibility it needs to have, we figured out our partners. Everybody wants to know, what's the price of this? And I said price instead of cost, because it is going to have a price, but it's not a cost. I view this as an investment. And here's what it's going to cost, and here's how we're going to pay for it. One of the great affirmations of our effort is, we ask the voters of Missoula County, do you want to pay $30 million for this library? And 57% of the voters said yes. In addition, our capital campaign, Janna and the others have gone out and spoken to businesses and to individuals who are involved in community philanthropy and asked them to carry some of the load. And we're at about 98% of our capital campaign fundraising. We still have some more to go, but we're very confident we're going to get there. And lastly, we asked the city and others, and then when I say the city, the MRA, and the MRA pledged $500,000 towards this project as well. And that's how it looks. And it's going to take 20 years to pay off the bonds. But if you think about what it costs per year and the benefits that we're going to have for our kids and our grandkids for the next, hopefully, 60 years, it really is an investment. It's not a cost. What's it going to look like? Well, first of all, I want to show you where it is. We had a wonderful stroke of luck. The property to the, I don't know how to drive this. This is the library right here, and this is the site of the new library. It's right across the street to the east. A local businessman owned that property and made us a heck of a deal. Swapped us straight across. Our current library is now owned privately, and the public library is a tenant in its own library. But that's going to allow us to do something very important. Keep the library open while we're under construction across the street. Now, I wasn't going to do it, but now I'm going to tell you this. Bozeman has built 2 libraries in their downtown since we built ours. And I was there for both of them. And they did something very interesting. They asked the people with library cards to check out a bunch of books at the old library and return them to the new library when they're done. And then they did something that was, because that didn't take care of all the books. They had a Saturday where they basically had a book brigade, and they had citizens lined up at the door of the old library, and a librarian was there handing stacks of books, and they handed books across the street and up the block to the new library, where another librarian was waiting to take the materials and get it on the shelves. It was just an amazing community building exercise. Everybody got a chance to personally support the library's move. So that's going to be where it's going to be. And it's going to take until 2020 when we open our doors. This is what it's going to look like. This is the west elevation. This is if you were looking at this building from our current library, this is what you'd see. It's going to be 4 levels, and it's going to have lots of windows. It's going to be a light, airy place. You go into our current library, they built that at a time when, if you're reading a book, why would you want to look out the window? So the windows in the current library, pretty small, narrow windows, not much to see. This is what it's going to look like from Main Street, across the street at the Methodist Church. If you were looking across the street for reference, that's where it's going to be. And this is the entrance right there. That's the main entrance. It's going to be landscaped. It's not going to be just a big, giant, angular structure on its own. It's going to have plenty of trees and growing things around it. The landscaping on the site is really important to fitting into the neighborhood. This is what they call a section. They just basically cut a slice through the library, and this shows how the main circulation is going to go through a central stairway that leads up from the lower level and takes you to each level of the library. There's the parking, indoors, underground. We've added we'll have almost 3 times as much parking as we have now, including generous bike parking Thank you. Bike riders. Mike, right? As you move up into the first level, this is kind of the commercial welcoming space. It's going to have a cafeteria, a cafe there. There's going to be, here's the MakerBot space where you can come in and make things on the 3D printer. We've got, this is where the MCAT space is going to be. You'll notice in our library we're going to have classrooms and meeting rooms. There's going to be meeting spaces on every floor. We were talking before this meeting, in 2 years, there's going to be no reason why City Club couldn't meet monthly on the top floor of the new library, because I'm going to show you the space where we can have that. Moving up, we've got the space for Families First and our youngest readers. We've got lots of space for kids. Right now we have, in our current library, space for kids to read. The new library is going to have places for them to read, for activities that involve education and reading. As you can see, we've got classrooms, preschool space, tiny town, places where kids can curl up with a book. Not a lot of furniture, but just spaces and places for them to curl up with books. This idea right here that's noted as the water exhibit, that's part of the Families First Museum. There's going to be an exhibit that will show people how the water in our area works, from the snowfall that hits the mountains to our rivers and our aquifers. And it'll be an exhibit that is going to be a dynamic exhibit that involves water. Moving up, you can see we've got on level 3 our Montana collection. If you haven't spent time in our Montana collections room, I encourage you to do it. It's an amazing resource. If you want to do research on your family history, the community history, some of the things that have gone on in this state, this is an invaluable collection. And it's there and it's available for you. And we're putting it in our library. We're giving it a nice corner space. And just encourage you to make use of it. This area is also going to be where we have most of our adult stacks and places for adult readers, businesses. The library is a place where a person can come learn how to write a resume, how to apply for a job. This is some of the services that a modern library provides for its community. On the top floor, this is the community space. You can see we've got room for 200 people to sit for a presentation. Take the chairs out, put in some tables. City Club could have their lunch up there because there's a catering space to hold events and to have catering there. And it's got this wonderful balcony on the south. For pre-functions, you'll be able to stand on the balcony and look south. Geoff, what will I see? This is a picture I got just this morning. It was sent over by the architect. This picture was taken by a drone at approximately the balcony space on the top level. And that's what you'll see. You'll look over, you'll be able to see the university campus. And if the drone had turned a little bit more, you'll see right down the Bitterroot Valley. And if you're on the other side, you look right up at Rattlesnake. And with our giant windows throughout, this is going to be a place where you will enjoy being while you're doing. You're going to have nice views. You're going to be taken care of. This is going to be a place where you're going to want to visit.
I want to mention one thing. This is the first time we've publicly announced it, but if you want to get out your phones or jot down a note, we have our public groundbreaking taking place on August 1st at 4 p.m. We would absolutely love to have you with us on that day. Again, that's August 1st at 4 p.m. And shall I go ahead and share the table topics with us? All right. I understand these can happen in a number of different ways, but we decided we wanted to pose a couple of questions to you. And so as you chat with the colleagues at your table, we'd ask, thinking about yourself and your family, what are you most excited about in the new library? What are you most excited about? And then secondly, thinking about what we've shown you and what we've said, what did we miss in planning the library? What other ideas might you have? So go ahead and, is it about 10 minutes of table topics? Is that right?
We're actually a little on
We're a little ahead of schedule? Okay, perfect.
Was there anything else you wanted to share?
I don't think so. Why don't we go ahead and do that, then we have questions afterwards.
That sounds perfect. Yeah, we'll take 10 minutes.
Perfect,
All right.
fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. We're going to start with questions, everyone. Abe is going to go around to each table for your questions, and I will hand the mic off to Jeff. Take it away, Abe.
Which table has an answer to what did we miss and what are you most excited about?
I don't know that we have an answer to the questions, but I guess we kind of have a two-part question. We're going to call it operating costs of the Jetsons. You mentioned in the 70s when the library was built, you couldn't anticipate the electronic media, the changes in the internet. So one question is, what will be different about this building that it would be flexible enough to change as technology changes, things you can't even envision today, but you're anticipating that, and so you're allowing for the facility to be augmented as technology changes. And then the second question is just about operating costs. You mentioned you want to try to keep the staffing the same, 3 times the building. Obviously, you're going to leverage technology to allow that to happen, but the operating costs, is it energy efficient? What sort of things are being done to make sure that the taxpayers of Missoula City are not going to see an increase in their taxes related to just the operating costs?
What was that first question again?
It's supposed to be one.
Right. Well, the truth of the matter is we're all headed towards Star Trek. If you ever watch Star Trek, everything that we do is a step on the way to Star Trek. And we're not at Star Trek, and we're not going to be there in my lifetime. But everything is a step. We're going to have, obviously, more energy efficient structure. We're not going to be LEED Platinum, but our architects have worked very hard on that. One of the things that I didn't mention in our comments was we very deliberately selected a design team that was made up of, first of all, a local architect. We wanted a local architect to be on this team because if we did have problems, we didn't want to have to fly somebody in from San Diego or someplace to take care of our building problems. But we also wanted a member of the design team that knew libraries. And so we have, as part of our design team, a team out of Minneapolis. And when we solicited architects, we said we wanted a firm that had designed libraries of our size, 10 of them, or designed libraries this size in the last 10 years. We didn't want somebody who was designing their first library. So we have a very, very good team of experienced designers, and that answers that part of the question. The library is as flexible as any building we can make. If you build an office building, are you building it for the Jetsons? Well, to the degree that you can, the answer is yes. And we're taking all of that into account as we can. The building guts are going to be designed to, we asked for 100 years, okay? But I don't know what's going to happen in 10 years. But it's going to be a flexible space that will allow that to happen.
Before you have another question from a participant, how about We're hearing rumblings about the impact of the tariff on the cost of construction.
Operating costs. As far as operating costs, the chief ones are personnel and energy. And to the extent that we can keep those, we don't have the estimates, but we're doing what we can to keep those in there. The question about the tariffs, if you haven't been paying attention, our nation has entered into trade wars with our neighbors and other countries around the world with respect to the cost of steel and aluminum particularly. And there are tariffs on those materials. Building costs have been going up because there's so much building going on. We kind of saw that coming, and we've been working very, very hard with our builder, Dick Anderson Construction, to keep a handle on that. It's likely going to cost more to have steel and aluminum, but it's not that big a part of the cost of the library. It probably will still be something that we'll be able to absorb in our planned contingency. When we put our building budget together, we didn't say this is what it's going to cost. We said this is what it's going to cost, and then we're going to have a cushion in the cost of the project so that if we have these unforeseen costs, that we'll be able to take care of it without starting cutting things out. Does that answer it? Okay.
Okay, go on here, Jeff.
Okay.
Thank you, Nancy Bevins. Our table sort of got answered because we have some considers, but for the group, we were wondering about helping and dealing with our homeless population friends who love the library and need their services and maybe do some training there at the library.
Well, I don't know if you know any librarians, but like small business people, they are the bravest, most wonderful people in the world. I love librarians. They're the first ones that will fight for our constitutional rights. That's what they do. And they care about people because people is who they deal with every day. And yes, we have a lot of our homeless friends and neighbors, our fellow citizens who take refuge in the library because of weather, because they don't have anywhere else to go. A lot of different reasons why they might be there. And one of the very first things that we talked about in the thinking about our library is, if that's where they are, that should probably be a point of entry for the services that they need. Already you can learn to write a resume, make a job application, learn about employment opportunities at the library. But if someone is homeless or needs medical support, things like that, yeah, we should be able to provide that as a point of entry at the library. So that is something that we have thought about and are going to work to include that.
Hi, Cindy Williams. Our table had a lot of questions and thoughts on opportunities. So first, there was a question about whether the structural design includes potential for a 5th floor expansion in the future.
No.
No.
Oh, wait. Carl tells me yes.
Oh, hey, good thinking, Carl. And then we're imagining that there's been thinking about the technology infrastructure in the new building. Maybe there are some new things we haven't heard about yet. And then is there a plan to do some training to make sure people know how to use it, and maybe even an awareness campaign to help the community be aware of resources the library has available to books?
Fantastic questions. I guess I will start with the library technology infrastructure question that you had. And so as we talked about where it's going to be a technology-filled library, one thing that's going to be really new, I don't know if anyone has been to the computer lab in recent years. It's a very busy place where there's a line to get access to, 20, 25 desktop computers in the basement space there. Moving forward, we're going to have, I think, close to 100 laptops that will be available for checkout from the library, and then patrons can use those wherever in the library space that they want to go, whether that's on the slightly more loud and exciting second children's floor or the quieter Montana room on the third floor. In terms of the awareness campaign, gosh, we've been working hard to get awareness out there as we've done a lot of this, both public campaigning for the bond and also private campaigning with the capital campaign, and that will only continue in the future. I'm anticipating a whole plethora of different events welcoming people into the new space and introducing them to resources that they may have known and loved in the previous space, and then all of the new opportunities, the new features that they're going to need a little time and help getting familiar with. So absolutely is the answer to that question. Thank you.
Okay. Since we know you're all readers, we placed bookmarks on your tables. And please take those, and the bookmarks have information if you want to go and get additional information. We don't answer a question today. There's a way for you to get additional information. Learn about the project. It will be continually updated with information like you asked for.
Okay, Geoff, Janna, got one here from Nancy.
Nancy Picard here. Thanks for all your work. I'm so excited. The thing I'm the most excited about is the windows and being able to look out at our beautiful community. You answered, I had a question about how many computers, and you just answered that. But we also talked about two other things. How many parking spaces are there going to be, and how are you going to regulate people parking there using the library and not wanting to park it for the roam? Or I mean, there's going to be so much traffic there on Front Street starting now. And then, how much of the energy is going to be from solar panels?
Well, regulating parking is always a challenge. And I think if it becomes a problem, we'll probably turn to our friends at the Parking Commission maybe and see if they can help us. In the new Rome building, the student housing that's across the street, there are going to be, I believe, 100 public parking spaces in addition to the parking that's provided for the Rome people. So I'm hoping that those spaces will also be available. Obviously, the library is served by the bus system, so we're hoping that people will take advantage, and by the time the library is built, I think we're even going to have electric buses. So we're going to use that to get to the library. Parking, there is never enough parking, ever. But we're having 3 times as much parking as we have now, so we're moving in the right direction.
So how many spots will there?
I think we've got over 100, or around 100.
It'll be 65.
Oh, 65. So, walk and bike.
And solar panels.
It might be worth mentioning also, and it hasn't been so far, that there's a plan, I don't know if it's approved or final, to make that street two-way again. So that Front Street would be two-way east of Higgins.
So would Main Street, so, yeah. And as solar panels, I don't think we're having solar panels on the building, are we, Carl? No, not yet. Yeah. No, I'm a big fan of solar. Anytime we can use that, that's the free stuff. Yeah, like it. There's one over here.
Larry?
Yeah.
Well, you got one, but Abe's next.
Yeah.
And then they're next, and then you're next. We have time. We'll be okay, Bert. Make sure.
My name is Gwen Langford Spencer. We have 2 questions. The first is we wanted to find out how the partners are going to be sustaining themselves if there's no admission fees. And then the second one is, do you have any indication of what's going to happen with the old library building?
One of the things when we got into the all under one roof, part of the economics is each of those places are now fundraising or have funds to pay rent and heat and so on where they are now. And part of the deal of coming into the library space is you no longer charge admission, but you don't have to pay rent. So I expect the organizations are going to continue with their own fundraising, but we're going to take that big piece of their budget of rent out, and they can do their fundraising for staff and programs and improvements. But the purpose of having these, the Children's Museum and Spectrum part of the library is to make the library experience better for our kids. Oh, and then there was one other question. Oh, do we know what's going to happen with the old library building? No. I have ideas of what I'd like to have happen with it, but Terry Payne hasn't asked me to spend his money.
Okay, over here next.
Hi, Jeff. My name is Joni Painter. In response to what are we most excited about, it was the all under one roof idea, mentioning of the reference and the research materials, the spectrum, and then of course MCAT. Our question has to do with safety. We had a brief conversation about currently in the children's area, anybody just originally walking in, any client at the library has direct access to where those young kids are. And so we talked about how comfortable families are having their kids feel safe in the library. So although there's that feature where now the children's area is on the second floor, which kind of removes it from, you know, just general immediate access to everybody, could you speak a little bit about not only safety features in the children's area, but just general safety features? This is a public building, and it's on lots of people's minds in terms of safety in our large public spaces. So obviously, other than many floors and different exits, could you speak to the safety issue for us a bit?
There's probably like an official answer to this question that I should be equipped with, but I'm just going to give you sort of my gut check on this. I know as a mom of young children, I love and value the library areas. I also don't leave my kids unattended, okay? And so, like for example, in the teen area, there is a teen area. There are specific areas set out for certain age of kids once they're sort of equipped for that kind of responsibility. And the second question about large public spaces, I guess I don't really have an answer to that. We have an amazing library staff that is incredibly skilled at dealing with a lot of different kinds of patrons and a lot of kinds of visitors. I have the utmost respect and trust in Honora Bray as the library director to be continually equipping her staff with the kinds of training, like the kind you're implying, to keep her staff and the rest of the library community and visitors safe.
Hi, I'm Shubham from India. I'm a Susi student. Well, I really like the idea of the whole building and everything. Just a weird question about it, like to make it more energy efficient, is there any idea to use piezoelectricity on the floors of the building?
Which kind of electricity?
Piezoelectricity, that works on the pressure. Since you have a great, there's a more number of people in the whole building, can we use piezoelectricity for making it more energy efficient? Thank you.
I love that idea. I don't believe we've got that plan, but I can also imagine a time in the future where we might retrofit to take advantage of that. The whole question about energy and what we've seen happen in energy in just the last 20 years, both in power generation and distribution and use, this is an area where there's obviously a lot of investment of money and technology and people trying to figure that out. We're trying to stay ahead of it, but like I said, it's Star Trek. This is going to be a step between here and Star Trek. We're not there yet, but that's a good idea. I like it.
Okay, we have a question over here from Bert, or if you spell it like it's true, if you spill it out.
Thanks. First, I want to say we were fortunate over here that we had a retired librarian at the table, and we had the people involved in the engineering of the new library building. So we got a lot of our questions answered here. You alluded to one I wanted a little more detail on. You said you asked for the building for a 100-year building. You said something about getting it for 60 years. What's the population you're looking at 60 to 100 years from now as far as Missoula County? And what are you looking at the building itself to accommodate?
Well, that's a good question, and I think everything that's out 60 years from now, not my problem. But I think we have to imagine that obviously, if things are going to continue the way they are, Missoula is going to be an attractive place, and people are going to move here, and our community is going to grow.
I'm sorry, Missoula is already an attractive place.
Right, but it's going to continue. It's going to continue to be an attractive place, and people are going to come here. And without telling tales out of school, Abe is probably going to be the one who's going to have the legacy of, we need to have a bigger branch on the south side, and maybe we need another library, and within 60 years, maybe we'll have one, right, Abe?
We can hope.
There. Yeah, no one builds these things to be the end-all, be-all for all time. The people who are our grandchildren and great-grandchildren, that's going to be their challenge. They're going to sort it out. We can't really even lock them into a solution today. When I was a freshman at the University of Montana, I took a course in photography, and one of the things I did is I came down and took photographs of the demolition of the hospital that was there before they built this library. Okay, I had no idea I was going to help build its replacement. And there's some little kid running around today, a little girl, who is going to take on the job of building the library 60 years from now and fixing whatever needs to be done 60 years from now. I'm glad she's around.
And the only thing I would add to that is back when this whole process for a new library began, I'm thinking like 2010, the feasibility study that we did at that point in time factored in a lot of that data, which we don't have on the tip of our tongues, but the idea that we are projecting future needs of this community as it grows and are building a building that will be as likely as possible to continue to serve our future as it grows in the future.
Okay, we're sort of done on this side.
We may be done on this side. Is there a hand up anywhere?
Yeah.
What, Rachel?
There we go.
Bruce.
Thank you. Bruce Buckby. I heard a really astute comment at our table that I wanted to relay, and that was that the commitment to the library as a pillar of the city is a really essential component to who we are as a community. And the new library not only refreshes that, but kind of places in the status of that public commitment in much the same way as open space. Question: will it be possible to access the library facility remotely?
Well, it already is. Remotely, I mean, I can tell you a lot of the ways that I access the library from home. I download ebooks, I download recordings. It's possible to, there's a lot of pointing going on here. It's possible to request resources from across the state. And I imagine, again, as we project further, I imagine all that will grow in ways that we can't even anticipate right now, but the electric digital connectivity of all of our libraries with each other will continue to serve us moving forward.
I have actually looked for a book, not found it, and asked them to buy it, and they bought it. So if there's a book you think the library should have, you've got an opening into the collection development people to see if it's an appropriate one for our library. And as it's already been mentioned, at this point, every time we add one, it's kind of Sophie's choice. You know, in terms of shelf space, we have to undo one, and that won't happen again for a long time.
And Bruce, I really do, I appreciate your comments about the importance of a truly public space. And it's one of the aspects of the new library that resonates with me as well. Go ahead.
Maggie Allen, are there any plans, or could there be plans for more foreign language books, both in the children's area and in the adult area?
I think that's a fantastic option. I would encourage you to, we're jotting notes as we speak, encourage you and everyone in the room to really continue sharing ideas or needs that you see like that, because now, and especially as we move into the new building, we are going to be able to be that much more responsive to patron and community needs.
Now, one thing that might be on your mind is you haven't donated to the campaign yet. And I just want to tell you that I've been so busy that I haven't made my pledge yet either. So there's still time, and I'd like to introduce Carl Olson. Please stand, Carl. Carl runs our foundation for us. And he's kind of old school, so he can take cash and checks. And the only thing I'm worried a little bit about is the cushion that we have might not take care of all the tariff. And there's some suggestion that we might, there's still a chance to contribute to the new library through the foundation.
So one question, and we kind of chatted about this, and we should probably know how the finances and the budget of the current library work. Is it paid through, the fees that they're getting for overdue books? Is it part of the city budget? How is that, or the county budget, how is all the money rolling in? And when the new building is built, is there, for your projections or with your projections, are there any gaps in where we're at now from where we might be later? And how is that gap going to be filled?
Currently, the library is funded by mills that are levied through the county, and everybody in the county contributes. As I said, we have library services from Condon to Lolo. We also have the WOW bus, which is basically a bus that takes library services to communities. We have a bicycle-powered library that shows up at the farmer's market where you can check out books and materials there.
And return books.
And return books, yeah. So it is a service that is supported by taxpayers. The fees, the fines, things like that, that all adds up, but it's not what covers the cost. The public library is supported by the public.
And then the gap question about the future, once you're built.
The librarians tell us we're good.
What was the question?
The question about the gap and will the cost of running the library still be the same or manageable under the current structure? And the librarians tell us yes.
Now, we're not going to give Bozeman credit for the idea because we thought about it ourselves separately early on, but when the date comes that the new library is open, it's a lot shorter here from the old library and new library. So if you'd each come down and get 10 books and just walk across the street, that would probably be appreciated, because that's going to be one of the big problems in the whole exercise, is to get all of the books from where they are to where we want them to be.
Well, we're getting this next question. This is a $36 million project. This is the most significant public building built in our downtown ever. This is the most important public building we've got. And are things going to go wrong? Probably. Are we going to have glitches? Yup. Are we going to have to pivot and move and change things? Yup. Yup. I don't want anybody to think that this is a slam dunk guarantee that nothing is ever going to go wrong. Something always goes wrong. But we have the best people we can get on it. Our library staff, as I said, our designers, our contractor, just the best we could get, and that's what we want to have.
And this will be our last question.
I'm Dave Westfall, and it's pretty evident that this is much more than just a library, certainly much more than a traditional library. In fact, a very modern library, very modern building. But library is not necessarily a modern term. Was there any consideration for calling it something other than?
Was there any consideration calling it anything other than a library? Not if I'm going to be involved with it. There's something about library that is iconic, and you could call it media center, you could call it institution of whatever, but a library is a library. You saw that definition that we had up here. It's a place where curiosity is welcome, where people, everybody is accommodated and welcomed. Knowledge is there, truth. It's not fake news. I'll tell you, if you want to know the truth, ask a librarian. Seriously. We have that service, by the way. You can't ask a librarian. You can settle bar bets, sports trivia questions. Contact the library. That's what they do. But no, I wouldn't call it anything but a library.
Funny you should mention that, Dave, because even within the librarian professional community, as long as I've been involved in it for 47 years, and I'm not a librarian, much less a professional one, is a lot of library schools tried to get modern, and they changed their degree from Master of Library Science to Master of Information Services and Scientists and Storm Builder Company or something like that. You know? And there's been some of those that didn't get changed, and some of them have talked about changing it back to Master of Library Science. You know, it's almost 1 o'clock.
It is.
And our deal is you don't have to leave, but some of you have to be someplace, so don't be embarrassed if you just have to stand up and leave now. Most of us will be here for a little while longer.
Okay, and thank you everyone for your questions. That does conclude our forum. Of course, the press are welcome to stay and ask any other questions. But thank you so much everyone for being here and participating. A lot of great questions. We always say 1 question per table, and people were so excited to have more than 1 question, so that was fantastic. Again, thank you to our guests, Janna Lundquist and Geoff Badenoch. I think you guys did a great job. Thank you so much. And just a few reminders, we will be sending out a member survey to all of our City Club members this week. We would love your feedback on how you think how things run, if any changes you'd like to see to the forums, any certain topics you'd like for us to cover in the coming year. So please be on the lookout for that. And we hope to see you all here next month, August 13th. We will have Montana Attorney General Tim Fox here presenting. We expect it to be a really big turnout, so please be sure to buy your tickets in advance. People who walk in, will do our best to accommodate, but I suspect we'll have a lot of folks here. So thank you again for all being here, and have a great day.